Okay, so one of the benefits of connecting your bank account and credit cards to QuickBooks is that transactions are automatically imported into your QuickBooks. So when they're first imported from the bank, they go into this review tab here. And then once they're accepted, they go into the QuickBooks. And if they're excluded, they would go here. You can see the bank accounts are listed on the top. Now you'll notice there's a bank balance and a QuickBooks balance. So ultimately what this is, the bank balance is what's showing on your bank account right now, and this is what's showing on QuickBooks. Most of the time, these should be the same, but there will be times when they're not. For instance, a check might be recorded to your QuickBooks that has not been reflected on your bank balance yet. So that's a common one. So when you go in your account, you'll see the transactions. And what you want to do is, first off, find any transactions that are matched. So these transactions that have a green means that something has QuickBooks found a transaction that matches a bank transaction. So you want to look and make sure it's the same. In this case, we notice that, okay, we have a deposit recorded, which matches what the bank showed. So in this case, we would want to match it. Now, for instance, what happens if you instead add it? Well, that can mean that the income could be duplicated because we recorded a deposit previously, and now we're adding it again. So if we make a deposit, we want to make sure that is matched with the deposit in the bank. The other thing you want to keep in mind is making sure the categories are correct. So in this case, it just says unrecognized expense. So we would want to find the correct account to make sure that it does reflect correctly. Once the transactions are added in QuickBooks, you'll see them here. If for some reason there's some that are duplicates or something like that, you can exclude them by just selecting them and selecting exclude here. Now, it's very important, and this is why a bank reconciliation is important, because it catches mistakes that can happen. I mean, transactions can get duplicated, people can enter wrong amounts, so it's very important to do the bank reconciliation, and you'll see in the other video how to do that. If the transactions look fine, you can select and, well, in this case, if you notice, we can't accept all of them because it has some matches. So we have those you have to essentially match manually. Okay. And some may have multiple, I guess, matches QuickBooks believes. So in this case, we would have to know which transaction this relates to. So in this case, this looks like the right one, we would match it. Now that transaction will be gone and cannot be matched with anything else because it's already been accounted for essentially. Another important thing to keep in mind is with transfers. So for instance, if we have the bank account here, this checking, and we transfer $500 to savings, that will reflect in the bank as $500 spent. So it will show up on this column. Now, QuickBooks might not recognize that it's a transfer. So for instance, let's pretend this A rental was actually a transfer from our savings account. In that case, we would click on the transaction and see on the bottom where it says transfer. We would select the account where it came from. We do not want to add if it's a transfer, because what that is doing is essentially adding more than there is. So if we just moved money from one place to another, we want to show that the amount of money didn't really change. So it's very important. If you make a credit card payment, that applies as well. So if we have, see, credit card here, and you make a payment from the checking account, that would be considered a transfer. So you should record that as a transfer, not as a new transaction. So if you ever want to add, let's say a transaction is not being reflected on your statement, you can always go here to the plus sign. If it's a bank deposit, you'll also notice this rules tab. This is where you can go and create certain rules. for your transaction. So let's say you always buy gas at certain places. You can go in here. Uh, okay, you can create a new rule. It's not letting me. And let's say gas, fuel. You can select whether you can select only one, but we'll do bank accounts because you're usually spending, and then select okay anytime it contains shell. Make it an expense that goes to auto expense fuel, and you can have that automatically go into your books, and you can also have a memo. So anytime that a bank transaction comes up with that matches this description, contains this word, it will add it to that category automatically. So